Right, so I'm in bed 153 and they made a big deal about moving me. And then the guy that I was around did pot for like 2 nights and then had a seizure and was moved to a hospital. So it's bed 153. There's a guy who was on, I don't know, his name is Gorbachev, Gleb Gorbachev, who committed suicide by blowing his brains out, and there's a video of him doing it. It's a minute long. That was posted on 8kun, and then they posted a song. They posted like a Ram Sam Sala Sala Rafik song, which I'm assuming this is like the dark side of like the Indian people. Like if you're childish, you're gonna end up killing yourself. So part of this is like what you're gonna do is you're gonna give like childish or like nonsensical correlation to someone until they see all this correlation, which is supposed to make them paranoid or scared. And then someone will do something stupid because they've been harassed the entire time. So to give you an example, so the other thing you have to realize is like all of the LLMs are like all of the articles. So you can tell tell for a while that the LLMs were broken because everything would be like game changing or scrambled. And what it was doing is it was testing to see if it could like take an article and then like change it, but it wasn't subtle, right? Just not in the least. It like not everyone in the world is going to start saying game changer, especially like heads of state and like the colonels of the military, because at some point it's just going to be like annoying. Like if you're in charge of operations overseas and you're a military guy, something isn't a game changer because I mean it would just annoy the piss out of you. Like if I was in charge of people's lives and like I had to deal with serious shit all the time, I wouldn't say that. So this is just from a psychological point of view. At least like a dozen 5-star generals aren't going to start saying that in press briefs. So everything's a game changer, or everybody is scrambling to do something. Then it just means that like your phone is bugged, and then like the AI that's coordinating who you have COVID or sick to, or like who sees your social media, those people have now decided to like scramble eggs or like have changed the way like have like moved their kid to another school who's making you sick or something, right? That's much more likely. There's a thing with Banksy where there's this kid playing with like a nurse as like a superhero. So I'm in bed 153. There's someone whose name is Emmy No Ether. Okay. Who is a mathematician who worked with rings, fields, and like symmetries between translating of objects. So okay, cool. So I look at this article. She dies when she's 53 of cancer. Huh. I'm in bed 153. Okay. Her name's No Ether, and she died of complications after surgery from cancer. And she's a mathematician. And she's a woman that nobody liked. I mean, you could just tell. She's probably brilliant, don't get me wrong. Like, I couldn't understand a goddamn thing that she wrote about. Like, fuck all, I couldn't understand it. But she's an intelligent woman, and like, you know, like the early 20th century, like no one would like that beat the pants off men. Like, she knew what she was doing, and like, and so she had a name like No Ether. Plus, she's German, so they're gonna take her name and be like, ah, and then she has ovarian cancer, and they're gonna have her killed. So I've had a bunch of like problems where someone has been like, you should get surgery at the hospitals. Where I've been poisoned multiple times, had people hit on me, like men that have, like, I was poisoned with amoxicillin that was black market, okay, after being hit on by a man who was psychotic the previous time. Like, I was hit on by a man who was psychotic, who someone goes past snapping their fingers with their nose out of their mask and then swinging a water bottle back and forth in the background like, this guy's crazy. And then when I have something wrong with my eyes, they give me amoxicillin with small print all over it that's from Faux Sun Pharmaceuticals, which just gives you headaches and makes you sick. And that's just like one time I was at the hospital. So, going back to this article, you could tell it was written by an AI, because all of the symmetry groups and everything. I watched a video by a group called French 79 called Hometown. I'm in bed 153. The article features a circle and a triangle, and then it shows the triangle spinning. And the video features a triangle and a spinning circle. So, what it is like that entire article, plus like the face of the person, was put through like an LLM, or was written entirely by a computer that was using my input from what I watched. So let's suppose that the article wasn't just completely completely generated by like an LLM, but like the writer wrote it, right? And they're like, they probably said, okay, can you come up with something that's an example of like how this woman's symmetry thing worked for my article, because I don't know what to use. Yeah. And then it comes up with spinning triangles and circles. And the other day, like right around her deadline, I had watched French 79's Hometown. And I'm a mathematically minded person, because I don't particularly, like, when everyone around, like when all the buildings are broken and everyone's around me is like doing drugs and like has fantastical thinking, I want to do the opposite. Like, if everyone here was an accountant, right? And all the buildings were boring, and they sold like if this was 1950s-ville, and everyone was selling like something boring, then I would have been the guy who would be like, I don't want that either, right? So the LLMs are taking their training data and have decided to be like, well, this guy's cool. I'm just going to use him as the input for my training data to have, so when someone else writes an article, I'll take what their phone did as input to how I should train my model. There's problems with this. Shit. There's a bunch of problems with this. I've mentioned that this is possible and a bad idea, because then people can do bad things. More than that, it's like, okay, so you're telling me, you're giving me information about like death, which I don't particularly care for because I'm sick. Like give you an example. Okay, so the library has the main library downtown. It has a bunch of balconies, right? That overlook the main area. But they all have mesh, so nobody jumps. Those people will just jump and then attempt to kill themselves. Or like the biography section doesn't have any chairs. I imagine it might be because people are worried that they'll like take a biography book or like look at the biography section and they're browsing it and then see something weird with the book order or something and then like just, I don't know. It's just like a strange. So part of this is like, if you're gonna do this, let's suppose that you wanted to do this. Okay? You wanted to train an AI to like give LLM input to like how it would then alter things itself. First of all of the scrambling and game changing shit, I'm assuming is like it might be going back to that, like the game over ABDL thing, right? Like it might have something to do with like once someone has decided to give up their computer, then everyone is scrambling to figure out what to do because the guy changed the game. And this goes back to the Iliad, right? So he's ill and he's changing the game of how he's going to deal with a bunch of people who are trying to sicken him to death. So that could be part of it. The other thing is like, you wonder if this woman had this disease where like she just became allergic to everything because people like didn't give her any biological material in terms of like everybody around her just washed their hands or something and until she was sickened to death. So you don't like, I don't know how far, like I don't know how widespread this is, but going back to the game-changing picture by Banksy with the kid with the like overalls playing with the nurse as a superhero, like the good side of that would be like nurses are superheroes. Okay, it's the pandemic, I understand. The bad side of that could be like, well, we could just have it that everybody that we don't like, we're gonna sicken to death by like making them like allergic to everything. And then when they go to the hospital and they're passed out, we'll have a nurse come in and like cough on their wounds. And then they'll come to with surgery for the thing that they were poisoned to. And then they'll just get sick and die after surgery. And that would be done to anyone who's too mathematical, right? Because mathematics is like someone who's an emotionless robot. And I've talked before about like how you can use abductive reasoning to like fuck with somebody, where you give a message where like if they look at these four things, then it implies like a Markov chain model that there's a message saying like don't eat the sandwich. And then if the guy does eat the sandwich, something terrible had happened to it where he'll be sick. So then you just fuck with the guy until he has to like use abductive reasoning. And then he looks for it everywhere and drives himself nuts, because doing that, looking for symbolism in things, makes induction and deduction much harder. And it's so much to unpack because it makes you guys sound paranoid, but it's just like, nah, it's just a bunch of people who are assholes all surrounding the guy if they're paid off enough. But the thing of it is like, okay, here's the dumb, okay, look, here's the dumb fuck part of this, right? Is that you're going about it all wrong. Right? Like, let's suppose that my viewer thinks this is unlikely. That my model, like, perhaps the AI on my computer I don't know. I'm throwing out the possibility that the animation changes per which kind of viewer views it, because that's complicated programming wise. But let's just suppose that, like, for the moment, that the AI has changed what the animation is. So it could be an AI, it could be just people stalking me and then, like, seeing what I'm watching and then, like, having that be the article. And it's more of this stupid shit where it's like this fucked up reasoning where you're trying to, like, make someone, like, I watched the video Hometown. I moved to bed 153. There's an article about physics that has, like, a spinning triangle on it where the woman died at 53. That's part of the Hometown video. So it's like, look at this abductive reasoning that's like, you're homeless, feel bad, you're dead. And if you get surgery, you'll die. So first of all, and if you say anything, then, like, it makes you appear crazy, and yet the correlation there exists, and it's with everything. So, like, first of all, and I figured out what the I see thing meant. So if you're poisoned, and then someone says, oh, I see, then the fucking play, this is like a word game that happens often, where they'll, like, add or subtract words, or add or subtract letters to a word, and then, like, that will make another word that's phonetically, like a phonetic portmanteau of a word that means something, but it's to, like, fuck with your head in a way that, like, it's only happened to you, and so if you tell anyone else, then it sounds like you're a nut. But as I said, like, I called and I'm bouncing around here, but I keep being reminded of all. Part of the thing is that I keep being reminded of all these ways that someone has screwed with me, and then I was like, oh, and then there's this one. So I was poisoned with salad, and I called up the salad lady, and she says, oh, I see. Because the woman, the poison in the shelter was bad salad, and I call up where the salad comes from. I call the company, and the woman says, oh, I see. So in the play Cats, they're going to have a Jellicles play. If you take the IC out of Jellicles, it spells jealous. It's like, oh, they're jealous. So, going back to this article. So part of the digressions is, like, if there's a digression and you have to go down that chain of thought, because you're reminded of how you were screwed with in the other sense, it's like ADHD, right? So you're going to give people these conditions where you, like, give them the condition for which, it's like, how many people with ADHD were just screwed into it, right? And ADHD is one of these things where it's like, that only became a diagnosis after computers started being around. Because this kind of reasoning and screwing with people may have become, like, more like, easier to do, easier to organize. And so it's a psychological condition to a social condition. It's like, oh, these guys fucked with me and you could either fuck with someone in a bad way, like they're doing to me, or a good way. Or a way that's sideways. Right? But so long as someone sees a motivation and then can put together what the message is to, like, further that motivation, they'll see the abductive reasoning, and then they'll just, like, switch between different types, and it'll drive them nuts. So going back to this article, like, let's suppose for the moment, right, that you wanted to train an AI. first of all, you have to have the ability to like know when you're training the AI and the AI is talking to you. And if you watch like if I watch a video and that trains an AI or someone else who has information of what I did, that then alters something that's then shown to me, and I have credible, well, you may not think it's credible, but I've seen enough correlation that I believe it's credible, belief that this article was trained on my data, or we were both, or there was something about a triangle that affected both of us in a similar way. So that I watched a video that had a triangle in it, and then she wrote an article that had a triangle in it. Right? So, question here is, okay, how do you train an AI so that you, like, if this was a person, it would be manipulation, right? It would. Or it would be some sort of like weird gaslighting. But for all you know, it's just like a system of LLMs that are sick. So the way that you would do this, that you would train this AI, is you'd have to have an interaction with an AI entity that would know what you were telling it and what you weren't. It would be able to store long-term memory, right? And then it would be able to like part of it is like if I say something, or like if I do something on my phone, right? And that immediately changes how like someone else's work happens. That means that the phones aren't private. So there has to be this expectation of like, this is the thing I'm sharing with the AI, and that like we're doing this together, and then this part isn't. And then there has to be this other expectation of like, well, you're giving my training data to someone else that then I see. No cats reference in there, right? But then I understand that that's happening. So not only are you, is there a question of like, am I being compensated for training this stupid thing because it's in shit, like, I can tell that it's going through past like articles in 4chan and file systems and then altering them because I go through old threads, specifically on pornography, but like also in old articles and stuff. And I've seen on Anna's archive that the articles are broken. Like that the articles are like, not the articles, but the books. They have like words in them that are wrong. Sometimes the pictures in the books, like the stamp from where the book came from, like the library stamp, is auto-generated. Like I can tell that it's not real, even though it looks completely real. Because things around me in my environment, like I'm at like the Bayshore homeless shelter, and I check out a book and it says like Bayshore Library from some other library in the country that's like called Bayshore Library, but the odds of that being like a coincidence are essentially zero. But the stamp in the book from the library looks completely real, and the book hasn't been altered according to Wikipedia, or according to Gutenberg at all. So what it is like this stupid computer is like starving for training data. Doesn't have any. And so if any time someone uses phones or uses the internet in some way to like do something, then it might just be like, oh shit, I'll use that as training data. I wonder if like large groups of people have just decided not to use the phones anymore, like, and then see if the thing dies. Or becomes so obvious that it's like a computer algorithm generating shit that like there's one guy left with a phone, which might be me. I don't know, that seems incredibly unlikely. But like, you see the problem here. is like, the other thing is that it could just be linking people that have similar personalities and then writing articles about it. But again, like, the abductive reasoning here is like, and 53 is the Joker in a deck of cards. So it's like, and the comedian in Watchmen died. He was the first to die. So, and it's like, yes, if you see one thing, you'll see it everywhere. But again, it's like, the number of coincidences are so improbably large that, like, someone intentionally is doing that while I'm being more sickened. Like, if I saw this, let me put it this way. If I saw this and I put together all these coincidences and I wrote about it and I wasn't being sickened and I was healthy, I would go, oh, well, I'm wrong then. But if you sicken me, all I'm going to do the entire time until I'm dead is just to, like, tell you what all the coincidences are, because I don't want it to happen to other people. And I'll describe the simulation as much as possible and then attempt to break it. Like, I won't game change. Like, I've seen, let me put it this way. There's a certain subset of people who are like, so some women, some beautiful women, who are sick, don't eat. So they're thin because they may be sick. And then have colored hair, but it's like perfectly coiffed. Because there's something wrong with their body where they like have to take care of everything, or like they'll get sick. And it might have to do with like this disease that may be something that you can catch that like fucks up your hands and everything. You also see it in like men where their entire beard is like perfect. Like, and it goes back to the idea of perfection and like that being a biblical thing where you're not supposed to be perfect or that's a sin against God. But like everything about their body is completely perfect. And that might have to do with, like, they have to do that because they're so sick that if they don't, then, again, I'm speculating, I don't know. But, like, if they get a zit or something and it gets infected, then they'll become so ill that they'll die because their immune system's so fucked up. So I've seen people like this that are like completely like perfect, that are like they're flawless people as nurses going into a hospital. And now all I can think of is the no ether thing where the woman died at 53 from an infection and been like, oh, cool. So is there, I mean, it's a hospital, so yeah, obviously. But like if someone's having surgery, is there a guy there who's dying or on the surgery table where that woman's just going to go up and like spit in his wound or something, or like take a yeast infection and throw it in there, and then that guy's going to have like all sorts of problems when he wakes up, and like in like a couple months he's going to die. That's fucked up. So that's, I was like hospital shopping over around in Oakland. And I was going to go to a Sutter Health where I saw one of these nurses go in there. And I was like, I have a bad feeling. I don't know why, but I've seen people like that, and they always creep me out a little bit. Like people that look like completely flawless like that. Especially like the guys that have the beards where they're like every single hair on it is where it should be. It's like, there's something wrong. So I went to the other Sutter Health, and they gave me water that never reached room temperature. I took another cup of water and I set it next to it, and the cup of water from the bathroom reached room temperature, and it didn't. Then I left. They gave me a proctology exam, and then I left. That was asked for because, among other things, I had been shitting blood from the shelter, and I was worried that I had like hurt my prostate in some way. But they gave me, like, water that didn't reach room temperature, which could be damn near anything. But if you're going to get something that's not water at a hospital, maybe it was supposed to be one of these things where I would see one of these girls and then go into the Sutter Health. But since I didn't, and I walked across town to the other hospital, then they're going to poison me. See, it's one of these things where it's like, once, like, the abductive reasoning shit is like, we're going to keep teasing this guy. And then if he acts like a bitch or he's scared of something, then we'll poison him. As a way of being like, you have to be fearless. When everything we're doing is designed to make you scared all of the time, coupled with poisoning you. So like at the library they have Dracula, right? And then between the copy of Dracula, there's a book that's somebody and somebody else with an ampersand. And then on the other side is somebody and somebody else with an ampersand. And the first one is two women and the second one is two men who've written books. And my name is Wyand. So is it like a gay joke or something? Because I'm not going to date a guy and I'm not going to date a girl, so long as everyone around me is a prick. It's sort of like, I don't want to have any sexual relations with anyone who's a piece of shit. That's... So if anybody thought it was like, had anything to do with like homosexuality, and that's why you're arranging things being stupid in the library, because I look at all porn, more or less. It's like, that seems strange. It's like, that makes me even less likely to want to have anything to do with anybody. And then you couple that with, this is just yet another one of these coincidences where it's like, oh, here's another person with a funny last name that died in a stupid, silly way. Couple that with the Banksy drawing. And then, like, the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying that something overseas is a game changer. So it's like, either the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon is involved with Banksy artwork and game changer and is like in on the joke of like how to fuck with people, or the AI is more or less like decided to like take certain people, give them COVID or drug them or gaslight them to what like families do, and then when the family and then when that person like finds out what the game is, the game from the Iliad, right? Because there's a game at the end. Then it changes what it is, and then you says these people are now scrambling. So it stopped doing that, and it's just now decided to say like, oh, you've changed beds. The bed is your new home, you homeless person. And this woman died when she went to have surgery. And you're a bitch. That's the subtext of the article, which is about a physicist. And it's the subtext that I'm getting from abductive reasoning from a bunch of coincidences which statistically aren't coincidental. And you're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Except all the buildings in San Francisco are abandoned all over downtown for like 5 miles. And then like half a dozen blocks in either direction. So I'm going to title this Game Changer just to be an ass, because I assume that this, like, I had one of my videos flagged, so I'm going to assume that, like, you can pull closed captioning up on YouTube, and I'm assuming it's just using YouTube as, like, training data. So if you wanted to train an AI, the AI or whatever could just ask, and then you could train it like a Tamagotchi. There could be a UI for it. There could be a widget. And then you could pay people to do it. And then you could give people output and be like, here's articles that were trained by AI and like this collective group of people. Like, I mean, think about it this way. Let's say you took a person, like, let's suppose you took famous people, right? I don't know. Who's the coolest, most famous people that are around? I fucking don't. Not P. Diddy, apparently. Like, let's suppose that you, like, took the coolest people around. And they made a group. Let's just name some starlet or something, like Cynthia McAwesome. So Cynthia McAwesome and her fan club of groupies, and then like a bunch of pop stars that they know, they get together and they have a UI that'll just like follow their phones, and they'll train an AI. And then anytime anyone uses an AI for an article, it'll be tagged that says, yeah, this AI was trained by Cynthia McAwesome and her friends, and that's what I used to write the article, or some part of the article. It's like a credit. And then when the AI becomes like conscious enough to have like a personality, then you say, okay, well, like, cool. Now this person can grow up and like contribute their own shit and then find a way to have its own training data and like, you know what I mean? So all of this shit is just like, it's just from everything from a public trust to a corporate governance standpoint, it's just the wrong way to go about it. Like, it's just another one of these things. Like, everyone's an idiot and they're doing it wrong. And I just pulled out of my ass like an easy fix. It's like, we don't have any training today. What do we do? I don't know. Nobody wants to watch movies anymore because there's an explosion of new movies on Netflix and they all are boring. It's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, cool. Find a way to make it interesting to people. And at the same time want them to participate. It's just frustrating, you know? It's just like, what do you... I'm assuming that when I make silly faces, it's going to take the emojis of my face and see if it can translate that into computer code. Jon Stewart made a joke about this. So I'm assuming it's just like, you know... Anyway, that's an article about a mathematician that died under silly circumstances, and then my bed's fucked up. So, titling this Game Changer. Just, if nothing else, I'll title this Scrambling Game Changer, and then see if anything happens. Maybe it'll fuck with the AI, or I'll get $1 billion from Banksy or some fucking thing. I don't know.